Welcome to the deep dive. Today, I want to challenge your perspective on something fundamental. If you really think about your organization, what is its single greatest asset?
Most leaders would immediately say, it's the people. And that's the right answer, of course.
Of course.
But the real question is, do our systems, do our actual day-to-day operations treat them that way? Because what the source material we're looking at shows is that a lot of very successful companies still operate as if human capital is, well, a necessary liability.
That is the exact tension we're diving into. The moment people are treated like interchangeable units, like assets that are just defined by their current utility, you get predictable problems.
Absolutely. You're talking about chronic disengagement, you're talking high turnover, and, innovation just stalls.
It's a strategic liability. And so the deep dive today is all about this transformative shift. It's moving from just managing people as assets to actively cultivating them as entrusted, precious resources.
And that shift redefines what leadership success even looks like. It's not just about profit. It's about how much human potential truly thrives under your guidance.
So our mission is to give you a blueprint for that change. We have to start with the why. Why is the asset mindset so limiting? And then we get to the how, the frameworks you can actually use. So let's start there with this core idea, the difference between an asset and a precious resource.
It's a fascinating distinction the sources make, and it's so clear. Think about an asset. It's defined by its utility, right? It depreciates, you leverage it for short-term gain.
And when it's not useful anymore, you liquidate it.
You discard it. It's totally transactional.
It's cold, it's efficient, maybe, but in today's economy where creativity is everything, it just feels so short-sighted.
Exactly. Now compare that with the idea of a precious resource, or as one source calls it, an entrusted treasure.
I like that.
It possesses inherent worth, completely independent of its current output. You don't leverage it, you nurture it. You invest in it. It's seen as eternally valuable. And that just flips the leader's role completely on its head.
So you're no longer the owner. You're more of a caretaker, a steward.
That's the word. The sources use this ancient concept, oikonomia. It's about stewardship or household management. It fundamentally says you don't own the people on your team. You're temporarily responsible for their growth, for cultivating their potential.
And not just for your department's immediate benefit.
No, for the person themselves and for the whole ecosystem. And this is where the sources root that value in something much deeper than just a quarterly performance review.
Right, they make it ontological. It's about being, not just doing.
They do. They bring in this, frankly, radical idea for the business world. They reference the doctrine of the imago Dei, the image of God. The argument is that every person carries this indelible stamp of inherent dignity.
Which means their value isn't circumstantial. It's not based on whether they hit last quarter's numbers.
Precisely. Their value is just there. It's part of who they are.
But that forces us to look right at what you could call the transactional trap. If my job is to maximize utility and someone's performance dips or they need expensive training, I start seeing them as a liability.
And that creates what the sources call a resistance to investment. Why would I pour my time, my money, my emotional energy into deep mentoring for someone if that asset might just get up and leave tomorrow?
It creates a cynical culture, a spiritually bankrupt one, really.
It does. Because you're signaling that the relationship is only valid as long as the utility is there.
And we see this amazing historical blueprint for how to fix this, funnily enough, all the way back in the book of Exodus, the story of Moses and Jethro.
It is an incredible leadership case study. Jethro, his father-in-law, comes to visit, and he sees Moses just running himself into the ground.
He's the single bottleneck for the entire nation.
Exactly. He's trying to solve every single dispute himself. He's exhausted, and the people are exhausted from waiting all day. Jethro basically diagnoses this as a system of self-exploitation.
The indispensable hero, which is always a sign of system failure.
Right. And Jethro's solution isn't, Moses, you need to work harder. It's the first organizational empowerment plan on record. He says, delegate authority to capable men you can trust.
So he created growth pathways.
He activated latent leadership potential across the entire population. It was a radical act of resource development by decentralizing power.
So it's not just about working harder, it's about designing a system that respects people's capacity to solve problems.
Right.
Which brings us right to the architecture of the organization itself. If people are precious, the structure has to show it.
It'd have to. And this is where that spiritual friction comes in.
Mhm.
You could have a leader with the best intentions in the world, but if they're operating in a structure designed for industrial efficiency,
The structure wins. It sends the message. You're only valuable if you fit in this little box.
that's it. And the sources point out these dignity traps, specific policies that just undermine a person's worth, often unintentionally.
Let's get into a few of those. The first one is called the information hoard.
This is so common. It's when critical knowledge, the strategic context, the financial realities is kept at the senior level. The justification is always on a need-to-know basis.
But the effect is totally disabling.
Completely. You're withholding the very data people need to solve problems. You're treating them as hands, not as minds. You're basically disabling their capacity for wise counsel.
And the second trap, the invisible role. This feels like a failure of recognition.
It's a huge one. This is where you have essential support roles. Custodial staff, admin assistants, who are systematically undervalued. They're underpaid. They're excluded from growth paths, sometimes even from all staff meetings.
It creates a caste system.
It reinforces the lie that some people are more disposable than others. It's a cancer in the culture.
Then there's the third, which I think everyone feels today, the burnout cycle structure.
Oh yeah, this is the structure that treats people like infinite disposable fuel. It's the expectation of constant availability, always being on, working through vacation. It violates the whole principle of Sabbath, of rest, by suggesting the mission is more important than the human beings carrying it out.
So how do we redesign this? The sources give two core principles for this kind of reverent architecture. First is purpose alignment.
Yes, the organization's ultimate purpose, its telos, has to align with the flourishing, the shalom of the individuals within it. The company cannot succeed by destroying its people. That is a transactional failure pretending to be a strategic success.
And the second principle is about the org chart itself. It proposes the body of Christ model.
Right, from 1 Corinthians 12. The first part is about interdependence, breaking down silos. But the really countercultural part is the mandate for investment in the weaker parts.
Which seems totally irrational on paper. I mean, if you have a limited training budget, don't you focus it on your superstars?
That's the asset mindset talking. The steward leader flips that equation completely. They dedicate disproportionate resources, time, budget, mentoring, to the people who are struggling, or the people in those non-flashy roles.
Right.
Because when you strengthen the most vulnerable parts of the system, you build resilience and moral fiber into the entire organization.
And the real test of this architecture comes down to the most mundane but critical processes, like compensation and separation.
Yes, the dignity of compensation.
Yeah.
This just demands justice, or mishpat. That means equitable pay. It means transparency in how wages and bonuses are decided. And it means a living wage standard. If your pay structure is a black box, you're undermining dignity. I don't care how many mission statements are on the wall.
And what about the hardest moments? The dignity of separation.
This is a leader's final act of stewardship. Even if a termination is unavoidable, the process itself has to be handled with the highest degree of dignity and support, because you're affirming that person's inherent worth, even as the contract ends.
If you botch that, you destroy the trust of everyone who's left watching.
Instantly. So we move from the architecture to the daily actions. This shift from managing to cultivating, what does that actually look like?
It sounds like it requires a different posture.
It does. Cultivation operates from a posture of faith in potential. Your team member isn't a machine you program, they're a seed. They need the right soil, the right water, the right pruning. And that demands what the sources call the discipline of patience.
But patience doesn't pay the bills. I've got a deadline next month. I need output now. How do you justify that patience?
You justify it by shifting your role. The manager directs tasks for the deadline. The mentor advises from experience. But the steward leader needs to operate primarily as a coach.
And what's the difference?
A coach honors the individual's inner authority. You ask questions that lead them to their own solutions. You don't just give them the answer, you're building their long-term capability.
I see. So you're investing in their identity as a problem solver, which is worth more than just the answer to today's problem.
That's it. But this kind of development can't be left to chance. It has to be institutionalized. And the tool for that is the personal development plan, the PDP.
And this has to be more than just a checklist of technical trainings.
It has to be a bespoke map for that individual. And it needs 4 pillars. First is vocation or calling. You have to map 3 horizons. What are you doing now? What do you need for your next role? And what is your ultimate future calling? even if that future is outside this company.
Wow, that directly attacks the fear of hoarding talent, which we'll get to.
It does. The second pillar is competence. Using things like the 7-0-20-10 model, 70% learning on the job, 20% from mentoring, 10% from formal training.
And the third pillar is the one that's so often missed in high-pressure places: character and spiritual formation.
Yes. This is where you actually set goals for things like resilience, humility, self-awareness. If you only build competence without character, you're creating a powerful engine in a weak frame. It will eventually collapse under pressure.
And the last pillar.
Empowerment. The PDP isn't complete unless it shows how that person has invested in and grown someone else. It mandates mentorship. You can't tick the box unless you've equipped others.
This all feeds right into the hardest part of the job: holding people accountable, but with empathy.
Accountability is non-negotiable. It's part of the deal. But it has to be developmental, not just punitive. And empathy means you have to seek to understand the person's context before you deliver the correction.
So how do you actually have that conversation, where you have to be firm on performance but still affirm their dignity?
There's a great practical tool for this, the grace sandwich. You start with affirmation of their value, their past contributions. Then comes the challenge-specific factual evidence of the performance gap. And you must end with support, a clear path forward, and a commitment from you to help them.
So they leave feeling convicted about the performance, but still secure in their worth.
Exactly. They know you're for them. But there's a huge pitfall that can undermine all of this great cultivation work, and that's the sin of hoarding talent.
This is the leader who's terrified of losing their star player, so they kind of subtly hold them back.
It's the sin of selfish security. The manager who limits a high performer's visibility because that person makes them look good. It is a profound failure of stewardship. The corrective is simple. You must actively advocate for and deploy your best people, even if it hurts your team's output in the short term. A steward is a launching pad, not a cage.
So if people are this precious, we need a way to measure how they're flourishing, not just what they're producing. This brings us to the People Stewardship Dashboard, the PSD.
Absolutely. The PSD needs to track the health of the resource, not just its efficiency. It measures the quality of your cultivation.
And this is where we get some really interesting aha moment metrics. If you're building a PSD, the first unconventional thing to track is average unused PTO.
That metric is a massive red flag. A high number of unused vacation days signals a culture of fear or overwork, or that people feel they can't be away. It's an anti-Sabbath culture. It shows a structural failure of stewardship.
And the second powerful metric is internal promotion rate.
Right. This tells you if your growth pathways, your PDPs, are actually working. If your best people are always leaving for their next big opportunity, it means your internal pathways are blocked. A high internal promotion rate proves you're developing and deploying your talent effectively.
And to make any of this stick, you have to force stewardship from the top down.
You have to. You tie a portion of every leader's bonus and evaluation directly to their team's PSD metrics, their team's trust score, their PDP completion rates. You make cultivation a measurable, compensable priority. It can't just be a nice idea in a handbook.
And this all leads to the ultimate act of stewardship: what you prepare to leave behind.
Succession planning. It's the ultimate anti-ego principle. A successful steward isn't measured by how indispensable they are. They're measured by how easily they can be replaced because they've prepared the next generation so well.
It's resource multiplication, not just resource management.
We've covered a lot here, from the deep philosophy of why this matters, to the architecture, to really practical frameworks like the PDP and PSD.
And the final thought from the source material is maybe the most challenging part of all of this for any leader.
It is. Stewardship, in the end, demands a sacrificial economy. The leader have to be willing to sacrifice their own efficiency, because coaching is always slower than just telling someone what to do, and they have to sacrifice their own recognition.
Ensuring credit flows down and authority is pushed out.
Exactly. The paradox is that your success isn't measured by how high you rise, but by how many people you lift up and successfully release into their own potential.
By investing in the character, the wisdom, the calling of the people entrusted to you, you're investing in something that lasts far beyond this quarter's financial results.
The ultimate joy of stewardship isn't in being served, it's in releasing potential.
Go forth, therefore, with reverence and resolve, and become the faithful cultivator you were called to be. We'll see you on the next deep dive.